Hello, welcome to the
Real Bit Wars.
I'm Chris, and today is Chapter 3 of Parting Ways. I hope you've been enjoying this new series. If you're new here, just to give you the rundown, I've begun selling and trading collectibles in order to help me finish the NES and Super Nintendo set. So, this time around, I sold a few things. And you might have seen in the previous episodes, I would maybe get rid of something to acquire something. And it had me thinking, maybe I should let this money build up a little bit and go after a banger. Started going over my list of games that I need. And there was some pretty appealing stuff there. I kind of found this little sweet spot where it wasn't too expensive, but it was just expensive enough that it's pretty coveted, and started to get very excited. I thought back to my early collecting days when you would go after those subsets, and I remember two third-party developers really grabbed my attention right from the get-go. That was Konami and Capcom. I set out to try and get every one of those games, and like many other people, I ran into a wall right away, and you found out that some of those are easier said than done, but I thought, I have the money to work with here. Why don't I just kind of make this happen and get one of those games? So, we'll go over the things that I got rid of. Like many other people, I grew up a Star Wars fan, and in more recent years, I've been dealing with a little bit of Star Wars fatigue, overexposure, but some things will never change for me. I will always adore the original trilogy, and the next best thing to that to me is the Legends, as it were known. So after Disney bought them out, all of the additional material that was considered canon was sort of shoved aside, and that's now called Legends. I like Legends stuff more than I like any of the new movies or TV shows and stuff, and I have a lot of cool things in my collection. I really got into a lot of the novels. I like Shadows of the Empire. Anything done by Timothy Zahn is really good. And another thing was, if I enjoyed one of the books, I looked to see if there was a Dark Horse comic adaptation. So I have a few of those in my collection, and it turns out they're worth some decent money. So the first thing I got rid of was the full set of 6 issues for Heir to the Empire. I got $90 for this, which is a good chunk of change. I must admit I had to flip through them one last time and admire that artwork. It was a little bit painful to say goodbye, but at the same time, these were just sitting there. They weren't getting read, they weren't being appreciated. It's time to send stuff like that along to its new home. So that got me $90. Nowhere near enough for the games I was eyeing up, but I had another Star Wars set of comics, Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand. This is another set of 6, and I got $60 for this one. I'm not nearly as nostalgic for this one, and if you're unaware of Mara Jade, in these canonical comics and books and stuff, that was actually Luke Skywalker's wife. So it's a bit of an oddity in that sense, a character that never made it into any of the feature films or anything. I sort of tossed that aside with the rest of it, so kind of holds its place in history and amongst the Star Wars lore. And I usually kind of went after stuff like that pretty aggressively. I wanted all those things in my collection. Hard to say goodbye, but the beautiful part is a lot of these I still have the novels and the audiobooks and stuff. So there's plenty to enjoy there. I can still revisit them when I need to. But again, not nearly enough money for these games I'm going after. So started looking over some of the other things I had that I could potentially sell. Now, as a loose cartridge collector, over the years I've wound up with plenty of manuals and boxes in my possession. And when I started looking those over on price charting, I realized I have some pretty valuable ones. And one in particular I had was Mystical Ninja starring Goemon for the Nintendo 64. Always loved that franchise. It did not include the manual, but the box itself was complete with the insert, the registration card, and so on. I got $130 for that box. But rest assured, I do still have the game in my collection. as well as the other one on the 64, so that's intact. I can still play those, which is awesome. Got a real nice bit of money for that box. Now I had some cash to play around with. As a matter of fact, I had more than enough for the game that I was eyeing up. So, as you do, I went over the other items that this person had for sale, and I found something that I've been wanting. Pretty cheap. Kept me well under this budget. As a matter of fact, I had a little money left over after I got these two games. But we'll start with this one before we get to the main event here. So, if you do not know, for the NES, I'm a label variant collector. And this might be the most ridiculous label variant I've ever picked up, but it was still on my wish list nonetheless. We have the upside down label version of Captain Comic. Ooh, there we go. So, not only am I the proud owner of a conventional copy of Captain Comic, I also have the black cartridge version of it, and now the illustrious upside down label version as well. So I have 3 versions of Captain Comic. So sue me, man. It's awesome. I love it. Okay, now I mentioned Capcom and Konami earlier. How those subsets were very appealing when I first got started out as a collector. And there was a Capcom game. I thought, I can afford this. My whole life, the only time I've ever seen this, there has been a pane of glass in between myself and the cartridge. Most of those panes of glass were covered in my drool because I wanted this so bad. Well, not anymore. Folks, I am the proud new owner of Snow Bros. This one's hard to put into words. This is the single most expensive game I've ever purchased. And this was like the stuff of legend, because I just started to think I was never actually going to get this one. I'm almost speechless, honestly. It just feels so cool to finally have it. But yeah, before we part ways, what do you say we take a closer look at this game? Oh, and by the way, I've been playing it a lot. It's awesome. A little bit on the easy side. I actually beat it already. I beat Snow Bros. Real physical cartridge. Popped it in the console and I played through and I beat it. That's why I do this stuff. Because that's just awesome, man. Thanks for watching.